You say you want to change. You say it in the morning while looking at the tired reflection in the bathroom mirror, promising yourself that today will be different. You say it at night when the weight of the day settles on your chest and the silence of the house becomes too loud. You say you want peace, that you are ready for love, that scarcity no longer has a place in your life, and that this cycle, at last, is over. And yet, if we look at your current reality with brutal honesty, the movie is still exactly the same faces with different names, the same arguments that change scenery but keep the same tone, the same subtle financial suffocation, the same emptiness when you turn off your phone screen. There is a silent fracture inside you, a vast distance between the life you formulate with words and the life you reproduce through your actions. And for a long time you have sold yourself the idea that you are a victim of bad luck, of destiny, of karma, or that you simply have not tried hard enough. You have thrown yourself into books, conferences, full moon rituals, repeating affirmations in front of the mirror until the words lose their meaning. But reality does not flinch. It keeps showing you the same grey landscape. This brings us into uncomfortable territory, a dark and sacred space where the masks of modern spirituality fall away completely. It is time to stop looking at the symptom and start looking at the design. Because the physics of this universe does not make mistakes. Your life is not broken. In fact, it is functioning with millimetric precision. The problem is that it is not responding to your conscious desires. It is responding to a much deeper law, an underground current that dictates every one of your days while you look the other way. Allow me to ask you a question that at first will feel like a punch to the stomach. A question most people avoid for their entire lives, preferring the comfort of a familiar unhappiness over the agony of truth. Do you truly want to be well? Do not answer immediately. Your conscious mind, programmed for survival and social acceptance, has already shouted yes. You will say that of course you want to be well, that who would want to suffer, who would choose insomnia, loneliness, or scarcity. But stop, breathe, lower your attention into the body. If you truly wanted to be well, with every fiber of your being, you already would be. If health, peace, or abundance were your true, absolute priority, your reality would already have collapsed and reformed around that new frequency. But it has not. And it has not because on a very deep level, in a subconscious basement where you rarely descend with the lights on, suffering is still useful to you. Being unwell gives you an identity. It grants you a story to tell, a character to play. It gives you the right to complain, the sympathy of others, the perfect excuse not to take a risk and fail. Familiar pain has become your warmest blanket. Yes, it is poison, but it is a poison whose taste you know perfectly. Healing, being truly well, would mean killing that character. It would mean standing naked without the narrative of trauma, without the culprit in your story, without the wound that justifies your paralysis. And the question is not whether you can heal. The question is whether you are willing to survive the death of the person you believe yourself to be. This is where the hidden law of intention reveals itself. The real intention of a human being is never what they say they want. Real intention does not live in your declarations, or in your vision boards, or in the wish lists you write at the end of every year. All of that is the periphery. It is the foam on the ocean. Real intention is what your identity, your nervous system, your most deeply rooted beliefs, and your daily actions continue to authorize as normal. Your intention is your minimum acceptable standard. It is the thermal limit of your reality. If you say you want a relationship based on respect and peace, but your nervous system only feels alive when there is drama, anxiety, and rejection, your real intention is drama. If you say you want abundance, but your deep identity defines itself through struggle, sacrifice, and the moral nobility of going without, your real intention is scarcity. The universe does not listen to what you ask for. The universe responds to what you tolerate. It responds to what you consider familiar, to what your body recognizes as home, no matter how toxic and destructive that home may be. You do not attract what you want, you materialize what you are capable of holding without panicking. Look at the last few years of your life. Remove the names of the people, the specific details of the problems, the dates. Look only at the structure. Do you see the pattern? It is a repetitive geometry. You change jobs, but the boss has the same authoritarian attitude again. You change partners, but the feeling of abandonment returns in the third month. You change cities, but the cloud of dissatisfaction travels in your luggage. This happens because you are operating from a biochemical and psychological addiction that nobody mentions in self-help manuals. Your body has become accustomed to certain daily doses of cortisol, frustration, and guilt. Your brain has wired neural pathways as thick as highways for processing rejection or insufficiency. When you try to move towards something better, when you try to manifest that ideal life you say you want, your central nervous system detects the change as a threat. For the subconscious, the unknown, even when it is wonderful, is synonymous with danger, while the familiar, even when it is painful, is synonymous with survival. That is why you sabotage yourself. That is why you forget that important call, why you say that hurtful phrase at the exact wrong moment, why you spend the money you were supposed to save. It is not that the universe is against you, nor that you have some ancestral energetic blockage. It is your own body dragging you back to the cell because the cell is the only place where it knows how to breathe. Your current reality is the exact mirror of the space where your subconscious feels safe. And until you alter that space of safety, every attempt at change will be nothing more than a cosmetic layer over a structure in ruins. To break this spell, we must descend one step further. We must speak about responsibility, but strip it completely of the moral burden that religion and society have imposed on you. You are not here to blame yourself. Guilt is a sterile emotion, a mechanism of the ego to remain in the same place while pretending to suffer over its situation. Blaming yourself for your patterns is like blaming a child for having learned to walk with crutches after breaking a leg. What you now call your self-sabotage was, at some point in your childhood or your history, your best survival strategy. If you learned that you had to be sick in order to receive love, your body learned to somatize. If you discovered that the only time your parents paid attention to you was when you were in trouble, your mind designed a magnet for chaos. If you saw your ancestors break their backs just to obtain the bare minimum, your subconscious decreed that easy or abundant money was a betrayal of your bloodline. You did not do this to yourself in order to harm yourself. You did it to protect yourself. The problem is that the shield has become so heavy that it no longer lets you move forward, and the armor that once saved your life has now become your prison. Returning your power to you does not mean telling you that everything is your fault. It means making you see that you are the only architect with the authority to revoke the permits. You are an adult inhabiting a body that still reacts with the fear of a 7-year-old child. Every time you freeze in front of an opportunity, every time you choose silence so you do not make anyone uncomfortable, you are allowing the child of the past to govern the kingdom of the present. And this is where we must draw a very clear line between true transformational intention and spiritual fantasy. Consumer spirituality has sold us a very convenient lie, the idea that intention is a purely mental or meditative act. We have been made to believe that it is enough to sit in a perfect posture, visualize a car, a partner, or a bank account, and wait for the universe to materialize it at our front door. That is the fantasy of the infant who expects the parent to provide without having to assume the risk of living. Real intention is not a thought. Intention is an embodied force. Intention does not replace action. It precedes it and gives it specific weight. You can spend 10 hours a day meditating on abundance, but if, in the moment when you have to charge for your work, you feel a knot in your throat and lower your prices, your action is revealing your true intention to remain invisible so you can remain safe. You can write in your journal 100 times that you deserve conscious love, but if you keep opening the door of your bed and your intimacy to people who treat you like an option, your action is screaming the truth. You cannot bear loneliness, and you prefer crumbs over the creative emptiness of waiting. The universe does not read your manifestation notebooks. The universe reads your boundaries. It reads your limits. It reads the no's you are capable of sustaining when the past comes knocking at your door disguised as a familiar opportunity. Modifying your hidden intention requires an act of honesty almost no one is willing to perform. It requires you to look at your life and stop calling bad luck what is actually silent complicity. What are you authorizing in your day-to-day life? When you allow your friends to use you as an emotional dumping ground, you are authorizing the idea that your time is worth nothing. When you remain in a job where your intellect is devalued in exchange for false bi-weekly security, you are authorizing the idea that your genius has a miserable price. When you tolerate the constant drip of self-critical thoughts in your mind without stopping them, you are authorizing your own destruction. Every time you compromise, every time you say, "Well, at least I have this," you are signing a renewal contract with your old identity. You are telling the matrix of your reality, "Yes, this pain is tolerable. Send me another dose next month." The rewriting of your story does not begin with a grand leap into the void or with a cinematic event. It begins in the small, imperceptible details where you decide to withdraw permission from the old life. It begins when you are about to react with the same old anger, the same old victimhood, and you decide for 5 seconds to pause. Break the automatism. Choose a response that does not fit the person you used to be. For a new identity to be born, the old one must be starved, and the only nourishment your old identity has is your attention and your obedience to its old impulses. If you stop obeying fear, fear begins to atrophy, just like a muscle that is no longer used. But you must be willing to hold the discomfort of emotional withdrawal, because when you stop suffering, when you stop complaining, the emptiness that remains can feel terrifying. It is the emptiness of freedom. And freedom, though you may desire it with your mouth, is far more frightening than familiar slavery. Dare to hold that emptiness for a moment. Stay there, at the border where the character you once were begins to fade and the one you are becoming has not yet taken form. That intermediate territory is the space internal alchemy calls the nigredo, the dark night of the soul, the moment when the caterpillar dissolves into an amorphous soup inside the chrysalis. There is no beauty there, no certainty, no applause. It is absolute silence, where the mind panics because it can no longer define itself through its problems. It is at this point of maximum tension that we discover the best-kept secret of transpersonal psychology. You have never desired the object of your desire. You do not want that money in the bank account. What you seek is the feeling of safety, the permission to take a deep breath that you believe that number will grant you. You do not want that perfect partner. What you are pursuing is the reflection of your own worth, the external confirmation that you are worthy of being seen, held, and loved. You do not want professional success. You long for the end of that inner voice that has been repeating since childhood that you are not enough. The great error of superficial manifestation is that it pushes you to chase the external form while keeping the internal void intact. It is a trap with no exit. If you obtain money from an identity of scarcity, you will live in constant terror of losing it, or you will spend it immediately in order to return to your familiar thermostat. If you obtain a partner from an identity of abandonment, you will transform the idyll into a stage of jealousy and control, suffocating love until you force the other person to leave, thereby fulfilling your own self-referential prophecy. True metaphysical mastery does not consist of attracting things toward you. It consists of embodying the internal state that makes those things a natural consequence of your presence. To receive abundance, you must first become the space that does not shrink before the value of its own work. To receive conscious love, you must first become the temple that no longer tolerates the profanation of its own dignity. You have to inhabit the vibration of the result before the result manifests in matter. You have to learn to feel safe in peace, comfortable in expansion, innocent in the pleasure of being well. This requires you to train your nervous system for what is good. It sounds like a joke, but it is one of the most difficult tasks you will ever face. We are so trained for danger, so conditioned to wait for the other shoe to drop, that when life gives us a moment of calm, we immediately ask ourselves, what is going to go wrong? We are afraid to be happy because we believe the universe will send us the bill later. Withdraw that permission. Cut that tie with tragedy. From today on, when you feel the temptation to return to drama, when the impulse appears to check your partner's phone, to overspend, or to criticize yourself in front of the mirror, stop. See it for what it is, the final spasm of a dying animal, your old identity trying to drag you into the grave with it. Look at it with compassion, but with implacable firmness. Tell it mentally, thank you for protecting me in the past, but I no longer belong in this place. I no longer have permission to live here. And then take the step your new identity would take. Not the step that feels comfortable, but the step that feels correct. The step that honors your peace, even if it leaves others confused. The step that honors your value, even if it makes your environment tremble. Because reality does not change when you change your opinion. Reality changes when you change your code of conduct. At the end of the road, you will discover that the great paradox of existence is that the search was always a distraction. You spent half your life trying to build a bridge toward an improved version of yourself, without realizing that the bridge and the walker were the same thing. The hidden law of intention is not an exam you must pass, nor a mystery reserved for a few initiates. It is a ruthless mirror that returns to you the exact measure of your own honesty. If your current life is a labyrinth of distorted mirrors, stop fighting the reflections. Stop trying to break the glass. Change the face of the one who is looking. You do not need the world to change in order for you to be well. You need to become so deeply committed to your well-being that the world has no choice but to rearrange itself at your feet in order to reflect your new sovereignty. The next time you find yourself repeating that you want a different life, be silent. Descend into the heart. Cross the line of fantasy and enter the terrain of embodied truth. Remember that you are not here to ask permission to exist, but to declare, through every one of your cells, the standard of reality you are willing to authorize. Because your real intention was never what you said you wanted. Your real intention is the life that, at this precise second, you have the courage to sustain. Assume the consequences of this sovereignty. When you decide that you will no longer authorize suffering as your currency of exchange, the world around you will protest. The people who fell in love with your wound, those who fed on your role as savior or on your position as victim, will feel uncomfortable. They will tell you that you have changed, that you have become cold, that you are no longer the same person you were before, and they will be right. That is the price of transmutation. For your external reality to reorganize itself under a new law, you must be willing to tolerate the friction of collapse. Many stop here. They prefer to turn back and return to the old cage rather than lose the approval of the guardians of the past. They prefer to remain sick so they do not lose the secondary benefit of other people's compassion. They prefer to remain in scarcity so they do not awaken the envy of their family environment. They are afraid to shine because deep down their nervous system associates shining with the danger of being lynched. But you have already seen the mechanism. You already know how the stage machinery works behind the curtain. Once you awaken to the fact that your current pain is a subconscious design choice, you can no longer return to innocent ignorance. Now, if you decide to keep suffering, you will have to admit that you suffer because you want to. And that is a truth far too heavy for the ego. Look at yourself right now. Feel the weight of your body on the seat. Feel the air entering and leaving your lungs. This instant is the only space where rewriting is possible. Not in the past that conditioned you, nor in the future that makes you anxious. Here, in the micro-world of your present decision, the hidden law of intention demands that you stop being a beggar asking destiny for crumbs and become the monarch who dictates the laws of your own kingdom. Your real intention is demonstrated in the quality of your thoughts when no one sees you, in the rigor with which you protect your energy, in the absolute refusal to participate in conversations of lack, criticism, or self-contempt. From this moment on, every time life presents you with a situation that once would have made you react from desperation or submission, you will make a ceremonial pause. You will breathe deeply and ask yourself, what would the person who already lives in the reality I say I want do in this moment? And then, with your heart pounding at 1,000 beats per hour, with fear running through your veins, you will act from that certainty. You will hang up the phone, you will say no, you will name that price. You will take that step forward. Not because it is easy, but because it is what your new identity requires in order to anchor itself in matter. There is no turning back now. The veil has been torn completely. You have stopped looking for the superficial manifestation of things and have focused instead on the absolute mastery of your internal state. You have understood that wealth, love, health, and peace are not destinations you arrive at, but frequencies from which you walk. The next time you feel the temptation to complain about what you lack, remember the question with which we began this journey. Do you truly want to be well? Let your answer no longer be an empty declaration made of words. Let your answer be your posture, your dignified silence, your unbreakable boundary, your refusal to be less than what you were designed to be. Close your eyes for a second and definitively withdraw permission from your old story. Let it go. Thank it for the services it provided and allow it to dissolve into oblivion. The cell is open and always was. The only thing missing was for you to stop embracing the bars. Because at the end of the day, the universe is never wrong, never late, and never judging you. The universe simply takes you at your word through what you decide to sustain. Do not ask the world to change. Change the standard of what you allow to inhabit your presence. Your life is not the result of your desires. Your life is the exact testimony of your true intention. Look around you. Everything that surrounds you in this moment, the space you are in, the quality of your relationships, the balance in your bank account, the tension accumulated in your shoulders, is not an accident. It is the monument you have built to honor your old identity. Every corner of your current reality is a silent witness to what, until today, you have considered your safe territory. For that reason, true awakening is not an explosion of celestial lights or an experience of mystical ecstasy. True awakening is a silent demolition. It is the instant when you look at the comfort of your dissatisfaction and decide that you can no longer keep paying the price of your own smallness in order to maintain order in other people's world. The change you seek will not come from a stroke of luck, nor from external circumstances aligning perfectly in your favor. Waiting for the world to become safe before you change is the strategy of the frightened mind that prefers paralysis. The external world will never give you permission to transform, because the external world feeds on your predictability. If you change, you force the system to move, and the system hates movement. Real transformation happens when you are so fed up with your own drama, so tired of your own excuses, and so bored with your old story that you prefer the pain of uncertainty over the agony of remaining the same. Do not look for shortcuts. Do not try to skip the dismantling process. When the old structure begins to fall, the natural tendency is to cling to the first thing you find, so you do not feel like you are drowning. You want to find another partner quickly so you do not feel loneliness. You want to start another chaotic project so you do not face the void of unemployment. You want to fill your schedule with activities so you do not have to hear the silence of your mind. Resist that impulse. Hold the emptiness. Stay in the discomfort of not knowing who you are while you stop being who you were. It is in that creative emptiness that your nervous system recalibrates. It is there that the addiction to cortisol begins to loosen, and where your body learns, for the first time, not to interpret peace as a latent danger. You have to teach your cells that it is safe to be calm, that it is safe to be prosperous, that it is safe to be deeply loved without needing a threat on the horizon. This is the true spiritual work. It does not happen in temples or meditation retreats or under the effects of sacred plants. It happens in the market, in the office, in the kitchen of your house, in the middle of an argument where your entire body screams at you to shout, blame, or flee, and you decide to remain there, breathing, inhabiting the center of the storm without becoming it. From today on, your only compass will be the coherence between what you declare and what you authorize. If you say your time is sacred, do not give your hours away to those who do not value them. If you say your body is a temple, do not feed it physical poison or emotional toxicity. If you say your mind is a creator, do not allow it to build scenarios of catastrophe and failure before the day even begins. You are no longer the passive spectator of a movie someone else wrote for you. You are the projector, the light, the screen, and the screenwriter. If you do not like the landscape you are seeing, do not try to clean the screen. Change the film reel inside the internal projector. The hidden law of intention neither punishes nor rewards. It simply reflects. It is a mathematical law, merciless in its precision, yet infinitely compassionate in its nature, because it returns absolute control of your existence to you at the very moment you decide to mature and assume the cost of your freedom. Do not seek anyone's validation. Do not wait for the past to forgive you. Do not ask your environment to understand you. Your new identity does not need permission from the old one in order to exist. It is born by its own decree, born through the force of your embodied will, born every time you choose the truth of your potential over the comfort of your wound. When you turn off this screen and return to the routine of your everyday life, the past will be waiting for you at the door. It will look at you through the eyes of that person who knows exactly how to activate your triggers. It will speak to you with the voice of that financial problem that seems to have no solution. It will tempt you with the comfort of that old emotional addiction you know so well. In that millisecond, in that microscopic space between stimulus and response, your entire destiny will be decided. Do not look at the problem. Look at yourself. Lower your attention to your chest. Feel the beating of your heart and ask yourself the definitive question one last time. Do I truly want to be well? If the answer is an absolute, unbreakable, embodied yes, then take the step. Withdraw the permission, change the code, sustain the new frequency. The universe has no choice but to bow before a human being who has finally decided to stop lying to himself. Because the best-kept secret of existence is that the door of the cage was never locked. You only had to stop kissing the bars and dare to walk toward the immensity of your own light. You no longer need to look for more explanations. You have reached the end of the conceptual labyrinth, and the only thing standing before you is the mirror stripped of myths. The journey was not about accumulating more healing tools, nor about deciphering a new metaphysical secret. It was about the awkward, honest, radical act of becoming tired of your own falseness. It was about looking at the altar where you had placed your wounds and daring to tear it down in order to build, in its place, a habitable space for your power. Feel the silence settling in this precise moment. It is the silence that precedes great decisions. Your mind may be trying to find a way to process this, planning how you will apply this truth starting tomorrow, or how you will change your routine beginning next week. Stop that mechanism. Tomorrow is the ego's final trap for postponing the death of its character. You do not change tomorrow. You do not heal on the next attempt. Your real intention is decided now, in the way you breathe this second, in the dignity with which you hold your spine before uncertainty, in the absolute refusal to return to the nest of self-pity you left behind only a few minutes ago. The old identity will reclaim its space. That is a fact. It will remind you of your previous failures, whisper in your ear that this is only temporary enthusiasm and that sooner or later reality will bite at your heels again. When that voice appears, do not fight it. Do not try to silence it with false positive affirmations. Simply look at it, smile with the wisdom of someone who has discovered the magician's trick, and let it speak alone. You are no longer the one who listens to that voice. You are the conscious space that notices it. From this instant on, you enter the external world as an initiate in your own life. You can no longer call yourself a victim of destiny, or of your environment, or of your family tree. Those were the scaffolds of your learning, but the building is already standing. You are the absolute sovereign of your energetic field. If you allow scarcity to enter, it is because you have decided that struggle is your home. If you allow lovelessness to remain, it is because you have signed the contract that says you do not deserve more. But if you decide, with a firmness that makes your ancient foundations tremble, that your minimum standard is peace, abundance, and clarity, the entire universe will move its invisible threads to sustain your decree. Not because it is a complacent universe that rewards your wishes, but because it is a mathematical matrix that cannot do anything other than reflect the vibration of the space from which you stand before existence. The ceremonial fire of this revelation has consumed the excuses. You stand naked before your own freedom, and that nakedness is the most beautiful and terrifying thing you will ever experience. There are no more pieces of blame to distribute, no more pasts to reproach, no more saviors to wait for at the station. The key was always hanging around your own neck. Go out there. Walk with the weight of someone who knows exactly what they are worth and what they are no longer willing to authorize. Look your old ghosts in the eyes and say goodbye to them without anger, with the gratitude of someone who understands that coal only existed to teach you to value the diamond. You have stopped asking permission to occupy your place in the order of things. You have stopped begging for the reality that belongs to you by right of consciousness. Do not look for change in the stars, or in rituals, or in the wind. Your life does not change when what you desire changes. Your life changes irreversibly on the day you decide to embody the truth of what you are capable of sustaining.